Hello everyone, my name is Drew and welcome to Social Distance Cinema Discussion. This week we selected movies off the American Film Institute's Top 100 Movies of All Time list. Going through that list I realized I haven't seen quite a few of those movies, so I think we might start doing this more frequently if we can't decide on a genre. From my perspective, it's always bittersweet selecting a movie and having it win, because I only select movies that I've seen and would recommend for people, but having to watch them again is kind of less interesting than watching a new movie for me. But I was more than happy to share Doctor Strangelove with everyone because out of all of Stanley Kubrick's filmography that I've seen, it is one of two that I actually like, the other one being The Shining. I understand and respect what Stanley Kubrick did for the film industry, but sometimes I'll watch movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey and will not be able to keep my eyes open. There's sort of an air of intrigue around Stanley Kubrick's directing style that continues until today. And personal preference aside, the man was a genius. He makes such crazy, interesting decisions that really don't make sense on paper until the final vision is seen through. People love to point out how much of an asshole he was to his cast and crew, and will sometimes use his genius as an excuse for his otherwise despicable behavior on set. Take, for example, Shelley Duvall's pretty much torture during the shooting of The Shining. Things like that also occurred on the set of Doctor Strangelove. Actor George C. Scott, who played the wacky General Turgidson, I think that's how it's pronounced, was told to oversell his performance before the actual take, and Stanley Kubrick in editing would use the wacky performance as his actual take. Kubrick, of course, always intended to use those takes in the final cut, and intentionally misled Scott. And after the film was released, Scott saw what Kubrick had done and vowed never to work with him again. He would also frequently tell production and set designers to completely overhaul all of their work at the last possible moment, which is a good way to get murdered these days. These facts prop up the myth that assholes equal innovators, which is of course ridiculous. We get it, Kubrick's a dick, but holding that to the highest regard in front of all the other things he does as a filmmaker is stupid. This line of thought oversimplifies things and takes aspects of his film that are really cool and throws them by the wayside. Take, for example, his choice to shoot in black and white for Doctor Strangelove. By the time the film was in production, color film had been out for around 10 years. Kubrick shot in black and white to over-exaggerate the shadows and to give the picture a film noir vibe. Although the characters sometimes get ridiculous, the dark and shadowy tone presents an air of seriousness, as though these human interactions are overly juvenile. That dark and ominous feel is most prominent in the war room. But there's other things, other than the black and white, that make that room kind of crazy and nightmarish. The designs of the war room pay homage to German Expressionism. German Expressionism was an early 20th century art movement in which the artist's inner feelings or ideas bled into the reality of the painting. It's not uncommon for directors to draw upon German Expressionism in their work because the movement and filmmaking developed simultaneously in the early 20th century. It's characterized by skewed sharp angles and great heights. The grand wall representing the world sits massive and imposing across from the little men deciding the fate of it. How should or could we allow such little, insignificant, and dim-witted beings decide the fate of everything we hold dear? That nightmarish scenario is accentuated by all the visuals in the room. That giant circle table that they sit at is lit practically, and by that I mean the only lights in the room are the ones above them and the lights coming off the wall. Kubrick went through and meticulously placed all of the lamps above them until he was happy with the lighting on the characters' faces. He also wanted the table itself to have green fabric upholstery. Even though the film was shot in black and white and the audience wouldn't see it, he wanted the characters to feel as though they were playing a game of poker at a game table over the fate of the world. That's probably the coolest fact that I found. It's something so minor and inconsequential that no one else would have ever thought to do when he did it. It makes me wonder what kind of effect that had on the actors' performances. Speaking of actor performances, we should probably talk about Peter Sellers and his ability to play multiple roles without me even knowing. The same guy played the RAF pilot, the president, and Doctor Strangelove, which is just insane to think about. I thought Eddie Murphy was the only one that talented. He was also set to play the pilot, Major Kong, but he fell out of the plane that was suspended 15 feet in the air and broke his leg. On a whim, Kubrick remembered this Western TV show and hired a guy named Slim Pickens for the role, who was literally the same on-screen as he was off-set, according to James Earl Jones. Even after learning all this shit, I think there's two major things that make Stanley Kubrick one of the best visionaries in film history, and both are in display in Doctor Strangelove. The first would be his ability to be on the cutting edge. In 1964, the world was gripped in paranoia, but the United States was in particular. Just 2 years prior, the Cuban Missile Crisis threatened to cause nuclear holocaust across the world. To join the discussion, Kubrick, who had already been obsessed with the idea of mutually assured destruction, read upwards of 50 books from some of the brightest minds of our time. And that would lead us into our second point, which is his research into contemporary literature and theories of the time. Part of the reason this film is so relevant even today is because it takes some of those ideas from the brightest minds of the time and incorporates them into a fictional work of art. He indirectly references names like Herman Kahn, who is best known for his idea of building deep underground bomb shelters to protect from nuclear fallout.
It would be quite easy. At the bottom of some of our deeper mine shafts, radioactivity would never penetrate a mine some thousands of feet deep.
And John von Neumann, who is a strong proponent of the idea of mutually assured destruction.
Deterrence is the art of producing in the mind of the enemy the fear to attack. Is that the whole point of the doomsday machine is lost? If you keep it a secret, why didn't you tell the world, eh?
Both of those characters inspired Doctor Strangelove, and another guy named Werner von Braun, who was an ex-Nazi rocket scientist that, after World War II, came to work for the United States. As always with Kubrick and any work of art, there's a ton of ideas and metaphors that are present that I don't have time to get into right now, so I encourage you to look up more if you're interested. Take a look into the sexual reading of the film. Personally, I don't need to look that deep into it in order to appreciate it as a masterstroke in comedy. Art is subjective. I give this film 15 out of 15 lobsters, and this rating system sucks. During the movie, I presented my theory on how Kubrick stopped worrying and learned to love the bomb. I think that he thinks humanity deserves it. But what do you guys think? Is there something overarching that I'm missing? Let me know in the comment section, and while you're down there, give me a like and a subscribe, please. Keep an eye out on social media and Discord for this week's movie. If you have a movie you'd like to recommend, let me know in the comment section, the Discord, or the movie list that can be found in the Discord. Happy New Year, everyone, and as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully I'll see you next week.